love is the answer. Now all we have to do is explore all the questions. And today's question is, what do we do when we mess up? We're going to make mistakes. We're going to hurt the people we love, the people we care about. You don't mean to. If we're a good person, we don't intend to do that, but we do. Everybody makes mistakes. And so what do we do when we mess up? If we handle this wrong, if we handle this badly, we can really do damage to relationships. There's a lot of good people out there that have made mistakes and did not handle it well, and it takes a toll on a relationship. There are people that I know that have lost relationships that I really feel like could have sustained a really good relationship, that could have worked things out had they just handled things better when someone made a mistake. Right? Now, we're not talking about today the biggest of mistakes, okay? We're not talking about abuse, okay? We're not talking about violence. That's not the stuff we're talking about, because no one needs to be a victim of violence in a relationship. You need to get out of that, okay? Those are lines we do not cross, and if they are crossed, those kinds of relationships need to end. You need to protect yourself. And so we're not talking about how do we work stuff out if our spouse is beating us up. That's not what we're talking about, okay? Those things need to go to law enforcement. They need to go to a therapist. You need to get help. And there are lines, as I said, we just don't cross. What we're talking about today are the more human things that are not violent, that are not these horrible abusive relationships, but they are mistakes. They are things that we do wrong. They are things that need to be corrected. They can't just be overlooked. They need to be corrected. How do we go about doing that when we realize we're the ones that messed up? We very often talk about forgiveness when somebody else messes up. That's also, it has its element of challenge to it, but sometimes we don't want to face up to the fact that we mess up too, that we make mistakes, and that we hurt people sometimes, even if we're a good person, even when we don't want to and don't intend to. So when we mess up, and this is a relationship we care about, this is a person we care about, we've messed up, how do we go about fixing it? Now, let me tell you what this show is not. This is not about shame. Self-shaming is not going to help, okay? It's not helpful. It doesn't fix the situation. It does no good. So this is not about shaming you as a person. We should not shame ourselves, even when we mess up. This is not about who we are as a person. You can still be a good person and make mistakes. In fact, the best of people make mistakes. It happens. It's part of being human. And so what we need to address is what we do. It's not about who we are. You can still be a good person and you mess up. And so let's address that mistake. Let's address what we did to mess up. Let's not translate that into, I am shameful, I am bad, I'm a bad person, I'm no good. That kind of stuff is not helpful, all right? So we need to still understand we are a good person, that we have nothing to be ashamed of, but we need to have enough of a conscience to realize I messed up. And that's really the limit. This whole thing about guilt and shame, there needs to be limits to it. We need to have enough guilt, enough of a conscience to realize I made a mistake there. I got to fix that. Once we understand that, guilt and shame have no real purpose. Now, if we don't have any guilt, well, that's kind of the definition of a sociopath. That's the person that does dreadful harm because they don't feel guilt. They don't have the capacity. There's a problem there in the way they're wired up, and they can do terrible things and not feel guilty at all. A decent person is going to feel guilty, but we need just enough guilt for us to realize our wrongdoing, and that's all. We don't need to go to the point of beating ourselves up, shaming ourselves, putting ourselves down, or believing that we are somehow bad or no good or a loser or any other bad things we might say to ourselves. We need to stop that. This is not about shame. This is about humanity. We make mistakes because we're human. Doesn't mean that we need to feel bad about ourselves. We can still feel really good about ourselves, about who we are, even if we feel bad about what we did. Big difference. It's not about who you are. It's about what we do. So we can feel guilt about what we did, identify that, and we're going to talk today about how to rectify it, how to fix it, but it does not affect who we are as a person. We're still a good person. Okay, we can still feel good about ourselves. Our self-esteem can be just fine. It does not need to affect our self-esteem in the least when we make a mistake. It needs to affect our actions. It needs to affect what we do. We need to learn from the mistake, fix it, make things better. Okay, so let's separate those two, who we are and what we do, two different things. So we're still feeling good about ourselves. Our self-esteem can be just fine. no shame, just enough guilt to recognize what we did wrong, but not enough to beat ourselves up. And now we begin to address what I did, what did I do wrong, and how do I go about fixing it? Obviously, the first thing is we have to recognize it. We have to see what we did, and we have to say it. We have to say what we did wrong, all right? We may not feel good about that, but we need to identify it. And we need to identify it to the person that we hurt, okay? And recognize not only what we did, but the impact it had, okay? Sometimes we like to start focusing immediately on our intention. We didn't mean to say that. That just came out wrong. I didn't mean that the way it sounded. Or, I think you misinterpreted what I said. Or I didn't mean to do that. Skip all that stuff. This is not about your intention. You messed up. You may not have intended to mess up. Okay, but you did. And so skip all the excuses of I didn't mean to, that wasn't my intention. You need to understand what I really meant. And certainly don't blame that person and say, well, you're being pretty sensitive. Not the point. Okay? Don't be making a lot of excuses. Go with, I messed up. And then recognize what impact that had. Okay? Recognize that you hurt that person, that you said something that hurt them. Recognize that. That will go a long way to fixing a relationship right there. It's not all of it, but it's a big step forward. If you can say not only, look, I messed up, that was a huge mistake, I shouldn't have said that, and I really see now that that was hurtful to you. I really see now that it had this impact on you. When people see that you are recognizing their hurt, that you recognize the impact they are experiencing, rather than talking about your intention, rather than talking about, wishing they wouldn't be so sensitive or whatever, don't talk about that. Recognize what impact it had. I see that what I said really hurt your feelings. It really upset you. I recognize that now, and I want to try to fix this. I want to apologize for that. So recognizing the impact, not your intentions. We can have it as a given. If you're a good person, you didn't just set out to hurt people. Now, there are people in the world that set out to hurt people. I don't understand that. I don't know why they have to be that way, but there are. But if you're a good person, then we can just assume you didn't mean to. You didn't set out to hurt them. But again, we're human. We make mistakes. So recognize the mistake. Identify it. Say specifically, when I said this or when I did this, I recognize now it had this impact. Be specific. A person really tends to drop their defenses. It's not perfect. It's not a foolproof system, but there is a tendency to help people drop their defenses when you recognize what you did wrong and the impact it had on them. So start there. Identify what you did wrong and recognize the impact it had on them without excuses, without going into your intentions. Now, when you recognize the impact, while that is helpful, you still have to allow room for them to be upset. Okay? People have to go about this their own way. Some people can shake things off pretty easily. Other people, it's going to take some time. All right? It's not going to be easy for them, especially if it was a big mistake on your part. It may take some time. So let them go through their process. All right? Don't try to rush it for your sake. Obviously, what we would love is if we said, look, I messed up. I'm sorry. I see what this did. I see that it really hurt you when I said that. I truly apologize. If we could do that and that person says, look, okay, I see now that you're sorry. We're good. Don't worry about it. Let's just move on. Hey, that feels good. And that can happen sometimes, especially with smaller mistakes. But if it's something bigger, it may take them some time. Let them have their time. Let them go through their process. Don't rush them. Again, you don't have to feel bad about it. You don't have to feel shame. The reason we rush people, the reason we want them so badly to get over it, to get past it, to forgive and forget, which is a silly notion anyway, but because we don't forget stuff that hurts us. But we want that. We want them to move past it, accept our apology, forget it ever happened, and move on because we feel such shame. And we want them to let us off the hook. If we skip the shame part, then we're not looking for that. We don't need that as much. If we skip the whole shame and guilt stuff, have just enough guilt to recognize that we did wrong, but not beating ourselves up, then we can allow them to have their space, their time. If it takes them a while to process this, if it takes them a while to come around and feel good about us again, if it takes them a while to really accept our apology because they've really been hurt and they've got to grieve through some of that stuff, okay, we can allow them to have that space. We're not in need of them to let us off the hook if we've bypassed the whole shame and guilt thing. We need just enough guilt. I'm going to keep repeating this because it's important. Just enough guilt to know we did wrong, not enough to beat ourselves up. So if we're still feeling good about who we are and we're looking to fix what we did, we can allow them to have enough time to process their own emotions, and they have every right to do that. Give them that space, give them that time. And then when the time comes, do what you can to restore the relationship. It's important to apologize. That's very important. But, there's a couple of things you can do after that. One is never do that again. And if a person sees you in a very similar situation, make a very different choice next time, that's going to win a lot of confidence. Okay. So if you apologize, make that determination, not just to say those words, but to change your actions. And when you end up in a similar situation next time, be prepared to do something different. Don't react that same way that ended up hurting someone. So make those changes, and that will go a long way into permanently rectifying that relationship when they see, you not only apologized, but you made a change. And in similar situations, you handle it differently now because you've seen the error of your past ways. And so that's critical. You have to do that. Don't just use an apology as words or to try to get somebody to let you off the hook. Understand that an apology leads to an understanding you did something wrong. Don't do that anymore. Fix that. Okay? Make a change in that. Now, if that's difficult, or if you find yourself apologizing and then doing it again and truly being sorry, apologizing again, and yet doing it again, and apologizing again, and yet doing it again, get help. Okay? This is not just a mistake you're making. This is a flaw. This is a flaw that you have. Again, not about shame, because we all have flaws. We're human. We are flawed. But don't just stay that way. We can improve. The great thing about being human is that even though we make mistakes, we can improve. We can learn. We can grow. We can develop. And we might need help with that. And so if you keep making the same mistake, and you truly are sorry for it, and you really do apologize, and you recognize that you're hurting people, and yet you keep coming back to that, that is a sign that you have a flaw in your personality, in you. Doesn't mean you're a bad person. Not going to have shame, not going to beat yourself up, but recognize that because we're human, we do have flaws. But we also, because we're human, can overcome them through growth and development. And so get help. Find a therapist, find a coach, find a counselor, get someone that can help you. Go to them and say, look, I keep making the same mistake. And I really don't want to. I apologize every time. I really mean it. I don't want to hurt my friends, my family, my spouse, but I keep doing this. Let's develop a strategy. Help me develop a strategy to not do this, to overcome this. Every therapist understands that. We have these habitual things that we do sometimes because we do have flaws as a human being, but those flaws can be addressed because we can also have growth and development as a human being. And so when we apologize, fix it. Don't repeat those mistakes. And if it's something that's hard and you keep repeating it, get help for that. But there's another way that you can sort of restore things beyond not doing that anymore, not making that same mistake. Just do something nice. Okay, this is not brain surgery. Do something nice. If you've done something mean, if you've done something harmful, then apologize. Fix it. Don't do that anymore. Recognize their hurt. Give them some time if they need it to get through things. But when the time is right, make some gesture. Do something nice. What would it do if you hurt one of your friends, you say something wrong, you say something harmful, you apologize, you recognize their hurt, you say things like, I get that that was a real big mistake. I get that I hurt you. I'm truly sorry that I hurt you. And if they are able at that point to come around or sometime after that and say, I forgive you. We're good. I understand you made a mistake, but I appreciate your apology. I accept your apology. Do something nice. Say, hey, can we have lunch? Let me buy you lunch. I want to make it up to you. Let me buy you lunch. Or, let's go get a cup of coffee. Let's just hang out for a while. We don't have to talk about this anymore. Let's just hang out and talk about something fun. Let's go to a ball game. Whatever. Do something nice for that person if you care about them, particularly if you are very close to that person. If you're talking about a spouse, a family member, a close friend, the closer you are to that person, the more important it is to do something nice, a gesture to show that you really care about their feelings, that you made them feel bad. Can I do something to make you feel good? Let me buy you lunch. Let's go out. Let's do something fun. Let's feel good in this relationship again. Do something nice, to do something that is restorative in a relationship. Once you have apologized, once you have made that change or committed to make that change, and they can see that commitment, and they've come around to the point that they want to talk to you again, do something nice to restore that relationship. Now, what happens if they're just not going to forgive you? Okay. You've done everything you can. You are truly sorry, not shaming yourself, but you really do realize that you did wrong and you want to fix it. You are committed to never, ever doing that again. And you're willing to make amends in whatever way you can. You've done it all. You have done everything to try to make this right, and they are not going to forgive you. Again, this kind of comes down to how close is the relationship. If you are in a close relationship, particularly with spouse or partner, families, close friends, if you are in a very close relationship, particularly in family, and someone is just not going to be able to get past this mistake you made, again, get help. All right. Don't let that fester. That can really destroy relationships. Okay. Those things, if a person is just not able to forgive in a relationship, that can really be a struggle. And if they won't go to counseling with you, you go. Go to develop a strategy to help work through that situation. And as they see you working, it's more likely they're going to go to counseling with you. Find ways to heal that. If they are not able to forgive, this is harmful to them. Now, again, you're not shaming yourself, so you're not trying to force them to forgive you, but we're concerned about them at this point. Bitterness, anger, unforgiveness, those kind of things, they take a toll on a person. They certainly take a toll on a relationship. And if you care about that relationship, get some help. That is not something you need to just let fester. It's not something you think, well, maybe it'll all just work itself out. If there is an unforgiveness in that relationship, get help for that. Now, if it's a more distant relationship, something like a coworker, all right, and they're just going to hold a grudge. You've apologized. You've made a change. You've offered to do something nice. You've said, can we have lunch? It's like, no, I don't want to have lunch with you. You have done what you can, and they are not going to forgive you. They are going to hold a grudge. Let them be them. You keep showing up with respect. Okay. Again, you're a good person. You've got to be the good person. Okay. And so you've done the right thing to apologize. You've done the right thing to offer whatever you can do to make amends, and you've made a change. You're not keeping that mistake up. You're not continuing to make that mistake. So if they're going to hold a grudge, let them be them. Again, it's not about guilt. Don't take that guilt on yourself. Don't beat yourself up. Let them be them. They got their own process to go through. They got their own issues. Everybody does. And maybe they're not going to handle this well, and it's going to be their mistake. Okay. They deal with their things. Show up with respect. Treat them with kindness. Treat them professionally, especially if it's a workplace kind of situation. Be a professional, be respectful, be kind, but you do not need to grovel. Okay, this is not about groveling. This is not about people pleasing. Some people just aren't pleasable. They're going to hold grudges. Some people are looking for you to make a mistake so they can think bad about you. Some people love holding grudges. That's their personality. That's their issue. This is not about groveling. This is not about people pleasing. And it's certainly not about taking on guilt because they have a spirit of unforgiveness. If you've done everything you can, keep showing up. Show up to be respectful, be professional, be kind, but you do not have to have a relationship with everyone. That may be a really good sign that that person's just not going to be a friend. They can be a coworker and you can work with them, but they may not be a friend because their personality type is they're going to hold a grudge anytime you make any small mistake. All right, that's not going to be your friend, but it can be your coworker. Show up with respect. If it's a closer relationship, as I said, it's not that easy. Get help for that. All right. The same advice still applies. Show up with respect, show up with kindness, be loving and good to that person. Give them time to come around, give them time to heal. But if they're just not going to forgive, you need to get help for that because that can really take a toll. And so think through this. Have a strategy. We all are going to make a mistake sometime. We're all going to mess up. That's the human condition. You don't have to beat yourself up. You don't have to feel shame, but you do need a strategy to make things right if we're going to have healthy relationships. So it comes down to recognizing what you did, recognizing the impact of what you did on that person and acknowledging that, apologizing, making a change, and doing something nice to restore the relationship, doing something nice to make amends. If you have that strategy, you live that out. And if you struggle with that, get help for it. You can build those healthy relationships even when you mess up, even when you make mistakes. You can still be a good person. You can still feel good about yourself and fix the relationships when we make mistakes. Being human's not easy. We all make mistakes. We need a strategy to fix it when we do so we can have the happy, healthy, thriving relationships that we really want. That's my thoughts today as we are building those healthy relationships through the skill set of love. As always, I hope you'll go to my website, markahicks.com. Pick up a copy of my book. There's easy links there to order my book, Learning Love, Building a Life That Matters and Healthy Relationships That Last. I want to thank my producer, Abby Graves of Abby Graves Production, and I want to thank all of you for listening today. Until next week, love well, everyone.